LBC Business Update.
With Who's Off. Manage staff leave in one easy-to-use system.
We'll come back to the British conversation concerning British Rail in a moment, but we're overseas. We're off to the US, where incoming President Donald Trump has filed a motion to dismiss the hush money case in which he was convicted after, of course, his victory in last month's election. Let's bring into the conversation Neama Rahmani, who's Californian attorney with West Coast Trial Lawyers and a former federal prosecutor who's been following these developments and joins me now. If we go back in time, if you can start, Neama, what was it that the president was convicted of? Remind the listeners. Good morning.
He was convicted of paying Stormy Daniels, a porn star, to keep quiet before the 2016 election and reimbursing those payments to Michael Cohen, his former lawyer, and writing him off as business expenses. Not particularly serious crimes, but to the extent that they were in furtherance of tax evasion or some sort of election fraud, they are felonies under New York law. He wasn't going to look at any time regardless of the outcome of the election, but now that he's president-elect, it means it's almost certain that he's not going to be sentenced to any time, even if the case isn't dismissed.
Now, Neama, initially sentencing was meant to happen last month. It was suspended, indefinitely?
So there's a couple reasons it's been suspended. First, Trump is arguing that as president-elect, he can't be sentenced. Now, a sitting president can't be prosecuted, but of course this prosecution happened while he was out of office. But he does have a good argument. Under the Supreme Court's presidential immunity ruling, the Supreme Court ruled that evidence of official acts can't come into any trial. And of course, presidents are immune for their conduct to the extent they are official acts. So the argument is this, a little complicated, but during the trial, there was some communications with Hope Hicks, his communications director, while he was president, and there were some tweets he sent out about Michael Cohen that came into evidence. So Trump's lawyers are arguing because that evidence came in, he should be granted a new trial or the case should be dismissed entirely.
They've also made the point, I read, Neama, that it could cause unconstitutional impediments to his ability to be president. What do you mean? What do you imagine they mean by that?
Well, I think they're going to argue that if he's sentenced to any period of confinement, then he can't be president. That interferes with official duties. But he's not going to be confined. There's going to be no jail time. There's not even going to be any house arrest. At worst, for the current president-elect, it's going to be some sort of fine, but he would still be a convicted felon. That's what he's trying to avoid. Listen, the judge in the case, Judge Juan Merchan, he was unwilling to sentence Trump to any time despite 10 willful violations of his gag order. He doesn't have the stomach to do it now.
OK. Lastly, who rules on this motion that was filed yesterday?
So it's going to be Juan Merchan, the judge. Then it's going to go up on appeal to the appellate division of the Superior Court. That's the next level in New York. And the New York Supreme Court is called the Court of Appeal. And then potentially it could make its way back to the Supreme Court, which ruled on the original presidential immunity issue.
Round and round it goes. Neama Rahmani, thank you, a Californian attorney with West Coast Trial Lawyers. 7:43, let's come back to matters here in the UK and indeed with British Rail. South Western Railway, we were telling you right at the top of the show, will become the first